Chapter 3, Footprinting and Scanning. In this chapter, we are looking at things such as the steps for information gathering, understanding what footprinting is. We're going to be looking at familiar ways of determining network ranges and maybe active machines. We're going to be looking at open ports and access points, what fingerprinting is, and we're going to discuss a few of the tools used for fingerprinting. We're going to look at understanding how to map a network, and that's where we're going to go. So let's start with footprinting and scanning are typically divided into the following 7 groups. This is part of the information gathering process, and that is first information gathering. That's pretty self-explanatory. Identifying the appropriate network ranges, which machines are active, maybe looking for open ports and access points, OS fingerprinting, fingerprinting services, and then mapping the network so that we can figure out the appropriate attack surface. Alright, so part of that information gathering could be access from maybe a company's website. If you have access to an internal intranet, or maybe from employees' emails, phone directory. Normally when we're doing this, we're going to be trying to build some form of matrix. That way we can see the structure of an organization. That could also include things like previous web pages from an organization. It could also be current and past job ads or employee lists. All of this is used to provide information about systems or staff that a company may use. Ideally, we're looking for software and hardware, but sometimes that requires more in-person skills. Some of the tools could be like people searches, social networking. Once you know the name of the organization, you can start looking at social media to see who works there. Google hacking, Usenet, register queries. That would be a whois lookup. Things of that nature. That way we can slowly start gathering information about a specific organization. Next, looking for a network range. We could use things like Trout or Leo Pro, maybe even Traceroute, which is built into Windows. The goal here is we're looking for the appropriate IP ranges that an organization has leased to them. We could do that by scanning if we have access to their network, but if we don't, there are other methods. We're going to be looking for active machines, things like HPing or Angry IP Scanner or Nmap or SuperScan. We're going to be looking to see which machines are available. Some of the tools we might use in conjunction with other tools, because again, some of these target machines may have ping disabled. That way, if we're using Nmap and we're using the ping functionality, maybe it won't work. Maybe we have to do a different type of scan so that our scanner will work. So we could also be looking for open ports and access points. Part of that's going to be Nmap and HPing, as well as maybe war dialing or war driving. The goal here is to find additional information. Maybe could just be port knocking. That's where we actually could go in and try to access a port to see if it actually is active or not. And again, we're not doing this manually. This is all going to be automated. So we've discussed our handshakes before, but again, our three-way and four-way handshake and shutdown process is important. So we need to talk about this again. So for the three-way handshake, we're looking at a client sending a sync. So the client will send to the server a sync. The server should respond with a sync acknowledgement. Then the client will again respond with an acknowledgement. Data will be sent back and forth. And then once we're ready to terminate the process, the client will send a FINAC. The server should send a acknowledgement receiving it. Then the server will send another SYN ACK, and then the client should send an acknowledgement. And these 3 and 4-way handshakes are this establishment of our TCP connections. And this is important because we can actually start exploiting the different methodologies. We could have a rogue machine maybe initiate but never terminate, or never send the 3rd shake or the 4th shake, and that eats up resources. Other forms of scanning techniques when we're dealing with our handshaking could be things like TCP connect scans or sync scans or FIN, null, ACK, or XMIS scans. There are different ways to see where where the handshake processes are. That way you could target one of them possibly. Next, OS fingerprinting, and that is where we try to find what operating systems are running. And we could do that by examining packets, looking at the IP TTL values, maybe the window sizes, or there could be fingerprinting tools like P0F, which is a Linux-based passive fingerprinting tool. The reason I bring up the passive tools is because active tools, if there's an IDS involved on the network, the IDS should detect and then shut down our active scanning. That's why sometimes passive is the more appropriate one. Other methods for active fingerprinting could be our FIN probes or bogus, TPC initiation windows, or ACK volume or ACK values, types of service, or there's plenty of other ways. Maybe even our initial sequence numbering sampling. All of these are ways to look at fingerprinting. Next, other tools could be Nmap or Xprobe. So far, we've discussed that not one tool is the best. You're going to have a plethora of tools. That way, you can make sure to choose the appropriate tool. Nmap is pretty versatile, and so that's been a very common one. Fingerprinting services. Maybe we're trying to grab information from certain services by grabbing banner information, things like Telnet or FTP or Netcat. Something that will provide information about the type, the version, and maybe the version type of the software. That way, maybe we're looking for FTP. By trying to connect to it, we may get the type of and the version of FTP. We may be able to get the actual platform that's hosting it. So there's some options there. All of this leads to being able to map the attack surface of what we're trying to go for. Some of the automated mapping tools are out there, like traceroute or inlog to automate results from in-map scanning. Or there's other tools out there so that we can help figure out the attack surface. And that's actually it for this chapter. I wanted to thank you.